So I was talking to a friend the other day. His child's autistic, my child's autistic, and it's that conversation between two fathers, especially when you feel safe to discuss autism parenting. You can ask questions without feeling like you're going to be judged. You feel safe enough to say things out loud. And one question he asked me was about school, and not which school specifically, but that question that always comes up sooner or later. Did you send your child to mainstream or special school? And I realized something over the years. This question almost never comes up without comparison attached to it. So you hear things like, oh, my friend sent their child to special school, and you know what? Their child doesn't even speak yet. Or you hear, my cousin sent his child to mainstream and their child has started to talk. So clearly mainstream is better, right? And it's subtle, but what's really being said is one path leads to progression and the other doesn't. And this is where I think a lot of us get it wrong, because we start judging outcomes before we understand access. So here's the part that isn't said often enough. Some children can access early education and some can't yet. And some may never access it in the way that we expect them to, or people expect them to. And let's be clear here, this doesn't mean they're not learning. And it certainly doesn't mean that they're not developing. It just means that development doesn't always look like worksheets, speech, or even sitting still. And this is where the whole special school, mainstream school debate falls apart for me. Because it's not about the label of the school that actually matters. It's about what your child actually receives, what they need to receive, and where they can receive it the best. So for some children, mainstream school works beautifully. Why? Because they can process the environment, regulate enough to stay present, absorb information, communicate at some level, verbally or non-verbally. So yes, for that particular child, mainstream school can help with speech, can support learning and social interaction. But for other children, put them in the same environment and all they experience is sensory overload, anxiety, shutdown and dysfunction. And if a child is in survival mode, they're not actually learning. They are coping. So when someone says, well, mainstream school helped my child, the real question is, could that particular child access early learning? Not, is mainstream school better? Now let's talk about special school for a moment. Because this is where a lot of unfair judgment happens, at least I feel that's the case. Some parents send their child to special school that's catered to children with autism. And years later, their child still isn't speaking. And then people, often it's not even the parents, it's everyone else, will say, well, clearly special school hasn't helped, he hasn't developed or she hasn't developed. But what if the truth really is that child was never going to develop speech early, regardless of where you send them? What if the progress that they made wasn't speech, but it was regulation, safety, communication through other means, confidence and trust? You see, progress doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it's quiet, sometimes it's invisible, and sometimes only the parents see it. But my child thrived in mainstream school. And this is where it gets tricky. Because both things can be true at the same time. Your child can thrive in mainstream school, and someone else's child can thrive in special school. One doesn't necessarily cancel the other one out. And the problem here is we turn personal experience into universal advice. Because autism isn't one condition, it's a spectrum. Not in a straight line, never in a straight line, but always in every direction. And here's another thing that people very rarely talk about or even think about. Access can also depend on your location. Some areas don't have special schools. Some areas don't have support in mainstream. Mainstream schools aren't always equipped for autism. Not enough staff, not enough resources. So what does that leave then? It leaves parents having to make a choice, not between the best options, but sometimes the only option. So instead of asking which school is better, ask yourself, what can my child access right now? What environment helps them feel safe? Where do they regulate better? Where are they calmer, more settled, more themselves? Because learning doesn't start with academics, it starts with safety. And nobody, and I mean nobody, knows the answer to these questions better than you as the parent, as the caretaker, as the caregiver. If you've lived with your child day in and day out, you already know more than you think. You've seen what overwhelms them, what calms them, what sparks curiosity in them, what shuts them down. And that knowledge matters. And here's something to think about. There is no medal for choosing the harder route. And there is no shame in choosing the more supportive one. There is but only what helps your child grow in the way they need to grow. So no, this isn't a video on mainstream versus special school. This is but a reminder that progress looks different. Comparison is misleading. And parenting an autistic child requires nuance, not rules. And if you're a parent struggling with these decisions right now, just understand that you're not failing. You're thinking, you're observing, you're caring. And that already tells me, and should tell yourself, that you're already doing better than you think you are. And that's going to do it, guys. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this video, do consider subscribing. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. And like always, take care.